Well, hello and welcome. Today we decode for you as to why few states in India are facing the problems of petrol and diesel and what is the really outcry about and what is really the situation on the ground. Well, few states like Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Haryana, Gujarat and Rajasthan are indeed facing some issues of petrol and diesel supply. Well, what really happened in these states was when we spoke to various people, including associations and government sources, the issue that came out was that these three to four states have supplies from the private players, namely Reliance and SR. Well, these two companies comprise about 15 to 17% market share in these respective states, and that is why these companies were started to face problems and losses with respect to supplying of petrol and diesel at the respective outlets. Well, to talk about the prices of crude have crossed about $120 per barrel, and the government, on the other hand, has reduced excise duty and not increased prices at the retail pumps. Well, in times to come, the companies started to bear the heat. The oil marketing companies and the oil producers are facing losses of about 22 to 24 rupees per liter on diesel, and on petrol, the companies are facing losses to the tune of 12 to 14 rupees per liter. So SR and Reliance both, in fact, stopped their supplies to the retail pumps and started focusing on exports. That is why the entire traffic that used to go to these two private companies indeed shifted its focus to into the PSUs, namely Indian Oil Corporation, HPCL, and BPCL. So immediately we saw that a huge traffic, especially for industrial buying and bulk buying, came towards these three PSUs, and that is why the supply chain was disrupted because the demand was much more than the supply. So really, in times to come, the government sources have pointed out to us that yes, the problem was there, and now it has been sorted out. In fact, there was a government intervention that came few days back, which mentioned that the production of petrol and diesel in the country is more than sufficient to take care of any demand surge, and the supplies of petrol and diesel are being made available to cater to the extra demand. In fact, the government statement also pointed out that there is a specific location in Stump State that has a significant increase in demand of petrol and diesel, with an increase being as high as 50% during the first half of June 2022 over corresponding period of last year. In particular, this has been noticed in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Karnataka. Well, in general, the increase in demand is a kind of seasonal surge in demand due to agriculture activities, bulk buyers, and shifting their focus purchases to retail outlets, and substantial reduction in the sales by private marketing companies, with substantial volumes having shifted to PSU ROs. So clearly, the government statement also mentioned that the PSU ROs indeed got a lot of pressure for supplying of petrol and diesel. We are expecting by Monday, in about 2 to 3 days, the supply would be completely normal across the country. Well, earlier I caught up with the president of Rajasthan's Petroleum Dealers Association and asked him about what really is the situation on the ground and how are the states coping up with such issues. Listen in to the conversation.
My first question, sir, is there a problem of petrol and diesel in the country? Is there a shortage? And if yes, what is the reason behind it?
Good evening. Yes, there is a shortage. There is a problem in supplies. There's a huge disruption of petrol and diesel supply from the oil companies to the petrol pumps.
Okay, and what are you attributing this problem to, sir?
I would like to explain deeply now. The problem started when the excise duty was cut down by the government of India by rupees 10, and it was passed on to the customer directly rather than giving benefit to the oil companies. Meanwhile, the crude oil price touched to all-time high, that is $121 per barrel. This made the company at a loss of about 22 rupees to 25 rupees per liter on diesel and 12 rupees to 14 rupees per liter loss on petrol. On seeing this, immediately the private players, namely SR, Naira, and Reliance Petroleum, stopped selling petrol and diesel from their retail outlets. I'll talk about Rajasthan now. Rajasthan, SR and Naira have about 1,100 outlets, petrol pumps. Reliance has about 175 petrol pumps. Approximately 1,300 petrol pumps stopped sales for diesel and petrol. They were contributing anywhere between 15 to 17% of the total sale volume in Rajasthan. This resulted into the crisis, and Bharat Petroleum Corporation immediately last week on Monday restricted their supplies to the petrol pump, stating that there's loss to the company and there is a shortage of the product. Taking that into consideration, the next step was that Hindustan Petroleum Corporation lost the track of supply chain because the demand suddenly increased and it went up very high. So by Friday last week, the Hindustan Petroleum Corporation restricted the sale of petrol and diesel, keeping in mind the low-level stocks they had in their depots, so that the depot doesn't dry out and they give reasonable supplies to important areas. The best part was that the Indian Oil Corporation boosted up their supplies and they met the demand drastically very well. They even pumped out so much of product that both the companies having trouble was covered up by Indian Oil Corporation. But as you understand, the customer is not aware of all these network issues. Wherever they went, they found that the petrol and diesel is not there, and there was a panic situation almost on Monday. We are in touch with the OMCs and with the government of Rajasthan. The Secretary Government of Rajasthan of Consumer Affairs called a meeting with all the oil companies and told them that no supply restriction has to be done. Resulting that BPC resumed their supplies immediately. And from Monday onwards, BPC could give supplies to all of their petrol pumps. HPC had a supply issue from the back end, which has been resolved today. So now they are giving their regular supplies. Meanwhile, as a Rajasthan Petroleum Dealer Association President, we approached the Honorable Minister, Mr. Hardeep Puri, and requested him that the supply should be made continuously in Rajasthan. Otherwise, the agriculture season is there and the farmers would have a problem and there can be a law and order situation. Immediately, he also directed a letter, which you have seen across the news channel, and they have issued clarification that no more fuel shortage would be there. Now, let's see what happens.
Right. Mr. Bagai, tell me why did the private players like Reliance, SR stop their supplies? Because if the OMCs are bearing losses, so the private companies are also at a responsibility of supplying to the consumers. So they just randomly running away should not be a long-term solution, is it?
I clearly agree with you. You see, the government should make certain rules and regulations that when they are giving license to the private oil companies, they make good when the sun shines and they make huge profits, which they did in last 3 years. And now suddenly, when there are few losses incurring due to high price of the crude, which may not last very long, I can understand the country needs the help at this time. So they should have come out and helped the people rather than totally stopping the supplies. The best they could do is whatever they sold in the year 2019, they could have taken as a benchmark figure, which they sold and they got the good realization money. They could have done that and they could have sustained the supplies in the market.
Right. Mr. Bagai, one more thing. What are the dealers doing at their end, and how are you trying to solve this crisis? Because in times to come, the problem will persist because the crude oil is very volatile right now, and the government is doing what it can to resolve that issue. But what are the dealers facing right now? Are they also rationing, or are they also facing a crisis? What is the situation on the ground?
Dealers are under tremendous pressure because two things have happened which they never foresee. The oil companies were giving a rolling credit from any 5 days to 3 weeks. Suddenly, both the companies, HPCL and BPCL, have stopped the credit rolling facility to the dealers and have brought them onto advanced payment system, resulting into a total blockage of the circulation of the fund, which itself is a very big challenge at the dealer end today. You see, if you see last 2 years have passed in COVID, where the sales were negligible and the cost of operation was being incurred regularly. So dealers cannot help in regulating the sales because it's a customer's fundamental right to take the petrol till the pump has the petrol. Once they dry out, then he can shut down his shop. Dealer is only making an effort to place his orders in time so that the company is aware of the sales figures. And fortunately, today, entire Rajasthan dealer network is online with the companies, where the oil company can see every liter dispensed by the dealer and they can check live stock position and sale position of all the dealer network in the Rajasthan.
Right. Sir, when the crisis came to light, the government was very quick to intervene and issue a statement that there is enough stock in the country's stock limits, and the country is ready to meet any kind of demand surge. So, do you agree with that? Is the country prepared for a demand surge right now, or there more has to be done?
I do not know exactly about the stock position, but I can understand one thing, that if the companies decide to make supplies uninterruptedly without having any concern on losses incurred by them, which definitely, if you have to understand, the major stakeholder is Government of India. So if there's a profit, government takes the profit from them. If there's a loss, government bears the loss. So where is the situation which is bad? The oil companies have to do only their duty to bring the import crude, refine it, and sell it to the customer.
Right.
I think the government call is there. So as far as the companies are concerned, they should do their duty well by supplying the regular product to the customers.
Right. My last final question to you: what is the future looking like in the days to come? If by Monday you say that the supply would be normal, do you think this problem could come again, because the crude oil price is volatile again, and if such a situation arises again, the private players like Reliance and SR would probably run away again and shift to exports to earn more money. So first is what can be done by the dealers itself, and second, are you looking forward that such a thing could happen again?
I don't foresee something like that, but definitely the current situation is very volatile, and government has to intervene in between, come as a rescue to the oil companies, so that the oil companies are not cash stripped, and they have sufficient money to buy crude and sell it to the customers. Otherwise, at this moment, you can understand the world is facing economical crisis. India, touchwood, is doing better, and to keep that momentum, I feel if the government has to suffer something on excise duty and VAT, they should all join hands together, reduce the price, bring this country to the top level where already we are heading for, and we have full confidence in the government to take us to next level of economy. So I feel that if the government takes a right step by the state government and the central government, the company losses can be curtailed, the public can be given relief, and ultimately we'll be having a win-win situation.
Do you also feel that are there any more scope for the government or the OMCs to increase or decrease prices at retail pumps?
I think that policy is okay, but still I feel there is no transparency. Transparency means that the prices are controlled at all level times, whether they are high and low. Once they bring it into GST regime, everything will be transparent. Even if government wants, they can create a new GST slab for petroleum products, liquor and tobacco. But that will be a major move to bring the country to one price, one country. Otherwise, if you see today, the product is being pumped from Gujarat to Haryana. Haryana is 10 rupees cheaper than Rajasthan. They sell the entire product back to Rajasthan through different modus, creating a big problem for the state and also the society.
Right. Well, Mr. Bagai, thank you so much for joining us on Business Today TV. We really hope that the dealers who are under extreme pressure could get some relief anytime soon. Thank you so much.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.